Hello, good morning. Welcome to the D Word. This is your host, Ferlie Almonte. My co-host, Carolina Denhard, divorce and family law attorney, is helping a client right now and will not be able to join us. But we have an exciting episode ready for you. If you are always wondering, why do I think this way? Why do I act this way? Are my relationships happy or disastrous? Well, today you will find out that there is actually a science or a special art. I'm not even sure what it is, but it certainly has changed my life and it will change yours. Well, I would like to introduce to you one of my very, very good friends. She is a living by human design specialist. She is going to discuss with you so many different tips on how you can improve your lives, the way you communicate, the way you can build relationships either in business or at home. It certainly has changed mine. You know, about 10 years ago, I went to a spiritual awakening event in Sparta, New Jersey. There were several different experts in there, but I was drawn to this amazing lady. And I was really quite curious what living by human design was. And so she gave me a quick reading. I never even imagined that my life will change just from that moment. And in a few minutes, I'm going to discuss with you, along with this expert, how you can also change your life in the most amazing way. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pride and honor to welcome Living by Human Design specialist, Karen Flaherty. Woohoo!
Morning, Ferlie.
Welcome. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm
Good.
great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so very much.
Great. And I love your flowers.
I know. Actually, my daughter gave this
Oh,
to
happy anniversary.
anniversary yesterday, but it was actually my daughter who gave us this wonderful bouquet for Mother's Day. Mother's Day was just last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And she surprised us with this beautiful bouquet, and she actually sang karaoke with us. So it was really a lot of fun. You know, this home is so much fun, and and I must admit that there is a certain thing that you have done in my life that has changed the dynamics of the way I communicate with my spouse and with my child, and also with many of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
So Karen, please tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then go right through Living by Human Design, because we are so eager to know what exactly it does to our lives.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ferlie. Thanks for that great introduction. And it's just been such a pleasure to work with you and Christine over the years, and Brendy too. So it's something that I was drawn to as well when I first heard about it. I've been just to give you a brief synopsis for me, I've been in corporate America for a long time. I grew up in New Jersey, oldest of 6 kids, went to school, went to away to college, came back to New Jersey because, basically that's what we do. We're like lemmings, right? We always come back to New Jersey. And I worked in New York for a long time. I had all different kinds of corporate jobs, mostly in sales and marketing and training. And I just was never quite fulfilled. I never made it to the corner office. I had all these ambitions when I first started, and I never quite made it in the 80s and 90s to the corner office. And I was wondering if I ever would. I took a wonderful relationship course in 91, I guess, and found my wonderful husband as a result of it just a few months later. And so some of the practices I learned there, and then when I found out about human design in really just 10 years ago, that really changed my life. I'd been taking courses and seminars and always trying to find out, basically what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I make it higher? Why couldn't I be happier? Why couldn't I be this or that, right? Why didn't I have willpower? I can't tell you how many dollars and time, how much time I spent with Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield and Wayne Dyer through the years. Probably, a lot of your listeners know of those motivational speakers too, and then all the newer guys, right? And so 10 years ago, I happened upon human design, and human design is basically it's a kind of a mix of science and spirituality, right? It's a personality assessment tool. And if I tell you how many personality tools I had used before that, it was kind of crazy. But I was just always curious, right? To find out more about me and kind of why, why, all the whys, right? When I found human design, I just happened to hear about it through a friend's email list. Remember those old email lists? And my eventual teacher was speaking down in Princeton, New Jersey, and she was talking about her new book. And at the end of it, she said, it was a snowy night in January, one night, and she said, and at the end of her speech, she said, and I liked her a lot, she said, oh, and I do this thing called human design. So if you'd like to get a chart, go to my website and get a chart. So as soon as I got home, I went to the website, I got a chart, I found out what I was. My label was a generator, and and then immediately or tried to set up an appointment with her. So I did that, and what I found when I finally talked to her in March was that there was nothing wrong with me. To find out after all these years and after all these wrong assumptions, there was nothing wrong with me. I was just set up to do certain things in my life, in my purpose, in my decision-making strategy. It was basically an energetic blueprint that showed who I was. And what I love about it is that it's all energy. So it does have a definite spiritual bent, but it's based on the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the chakra system, and quantum physics. So it's a little bit of the old and some of the new. In fact, quantum physics, biogenetics, and modern math. And so from all that, we get a lot of information. We find out how you make decisions or how it's best to make decisions. And that's all that the energy types really tell us is really, we're all here to make decisions differently. And so if we know how to make decisions, and I think you were able to see that once we started talking, right? That if you make decisions the way you're supposed to make decisions, and then I make decisions the way I'm supposed to make decisions, we'll both be a lot happier, right? And isn't the world all about choices, right?
Let's stop for a moment, because
Sure.
I'm remembering the time that I met you, right? And again, it all started with curiosity. I was not sure whether it was numerology, cosmic, was it spirituality? But then again, there was a whole big science to it. And basically, the whole process was that Karen was there. She asked for my full name, my birthday, and exact birth date. And the rest was history.
Yeah.
She went to town and just created this incredible chart that nobody, of course, will be able to interpret unless you're specifically trained to read that. Please tell us about this chart, because it looks like, it looks like a very, it looks almost like a robot. I don't know, that's how I was, it looks like a robot with different branches and numbers and letters. What do they mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, do you mind if I show a chart?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. Great. So I'll just pull up my favorite, Albert Einstein, real quick. Can you see that, Ferlie?
Yes. Okay.
Great.
Now I remember. Look at that.
Okay. So this is Albert Einstein. He's one of my favorites. And so what we have in this chart, as we call it, is what you look like energetically. And so this happens to be based on Albert Einstein's time of birth and date and his and place of birth. And that's all we need. It's just the location, date, and time of your birth to make the chart. It's not based on your name. It's not based on numerology at all. But what we see then are these 9 different energy centers, as we call them. And so it's like a big aura. Think of it as a big aura, except this is broken into 9 different energy centers. And so with those energy centers, we're able to see then where your energy lies. And, Ferlie, when you walk into a room and you meet somebody new and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I really like talking to this person. This is so much fun. Why didn't I know this person before, right? Sometimes there's that kind of energy. And then other times, not so much, right? Not so much. And we say, oh, wow, I can't wait till this conversation ends in our head, right?
I could hear that, like all those negative people, you feel like there's a dark cloud that just came over you. It's like, oh my gosh, let me get out of here,
You
It
know,
all makes a lot of sense now. Oh, go ahead. I'm
yeah,
sorry for interrupting because this is
no,
very fascinating.
sure, no problem. And sometimes it's a dark cloud, but sometimes they could be smiling, they could be happy, they could be jovial, and yet we still get this little niggling, just feeling that it's still not the right person for us. And especially when it comes to relationships, right? That's really, part of the puzzle, right? Is having that chemistry with another person. And so
Mm.
in these, in this one chart, for example, this is what an individual would look like. Most people have 4 or 5 of these centers colored in. You can see Albert Einstein has 5 of them colored in, and then 4 of them are in white. And so the ones that are colored in, this is where we have consistent energy in our chart. And don't forget, this is from when you're born. So this is the beauty of who you are from when you're born. And so he had all these uh, centers colored in when he was born. And in fact, in human design, he had 4 motors colored in. So he always had a lot of energy. And it made him what we call a generator, which is one of the 5 types. And I don't know if we'll have time to get into the different energy
Can you
types.
quickly tell us about the 5 types and maybe 1 or 2 special features about them that would make them more identifiable?
Okay, so see that big red square at the bottom, near the
Okay.
bottom for Albert Einstein? That makes him a generator. And the white up by the throat area, that also makes him a generator. And so just for example, generators are it's the biggest amount of people in the world, 37%. So there are 5 different energy types, and one type is the generator. And they have that sacral filled in, that's the red square, and they usually have the throat either white or it could be colored in, but it doesn't have a lot of power. It's not motorized, as we say. And so that sacral is what gives him the energy to go and go and go, and gives all the generators the energy to go and go and go. And this is what allows us to be the laborers and the farmers and the factory workers in the last century. Now we get to decide what we want to do. Another type are manifesting generators, and the manifesting generators are like the generators in that they have the red sacral filled in, but they also have the throat filled in, and it's connected to a motor. So they have the ability to speak a lot more loudly, a lot more often, um, a lot more in a way that's heard very easily. Generators have kind of a hard time being heard. I'm a generator, and I have a hard time being heard sometimes, and unless people want to hear me. But then the manifesting generators, they're the kind who can be, really boisterous at a football game or yell across the playground to get their children to hear them, or, even yell out to call for dinner, right? They don't need a bell. I tell my generator clients to get a bell or get a balloon or something to get their children's attention when they're trying to get them away from their iPads and tablets and stuff, right? So those are
And then the others?
those are 2 of the types. And then the other types are projectors. You happen to be a projector. That's 20% of the population. And they are here to be wise and to guide and direct the energy of other people, which is really a nice little platform to have. Another type are the manifestors. And manifestors are only 8 or 9% of the population. And they're here to start projects, to get things started, really, to start a project or a not-for-profit or a company. They're really the kind of people who like to get things started, but then they might walk away from them. They're better off delegating to the generators and manifesting generators, for example. And then the last type are reflectors, and they're really rare. They're only 1% of the population, and they have every single center on the chart is colored in white. So they're like mirrors for the rest of us, and they tell us whether a community is healthy or not. So you can see everybody's got a different role to play, but they also have different decision-making strategies. So some of us, the only ones who can just have an idea in their head and go ahead and make that decision happen are manifestors. So that's why we think of them as kind of the just do it people, the Nike just do it, right? Where they can
This
just
is Einstein, so he is a just do it person.
manifestors, yes.
Manifester.
Yep.
Actually, I would love to be able to share with the audience, the reading that you've given me and how it has affected me, because everything that Karen is sharing right now is almost like French to most of us, right? Until you actually sit with her and do a full reading. And boy, she read me like a book. And I did not know Karen before. She didn't know about my life. But, it all started with a 15-minute chart reading. Just to give me a little bit of an overview. But it got me enough curious because there was just one thing that she said to me that changed my life and the way I communicated with people. And that, she was saying that it had something to do with strategy, because being that I am a projector, I'm here to advise, because I'm supposed to be wise. And sometimes people are not ready to receive me or what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
So in that chart, basically she said to me, wait to be invited. And boy, my life has changed tremendously ever since that time, because I've learned to shut up and wait to be invited. And now, as a result of this,
Because you want people to appreciate your wisdom, Ferlie, right?
yes.
You don't want to waste it on people.
I know.
You get a lot of good advice.
I'm
You don't
just
want to
saying,
waste it.
it is so amazing, because and then as a result of that, even that just one bit of advice that I learned about myself, it first of all started with awareness of how I'm wired. And then we got a couple's reading for me and Christine. And it helped me and Christine communicate in a much more effective way, without hurting, and just being very loving about it, including my daughter. You also do a family reading, correct?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So I am telling you, I just wanted to share my experience, because it was like, for me alone, was a 2-hour reading on the phone, and everything was recorded. Every now and then I listened to it, because it would remind me of something that, oh my goodness, now it makes more sense. Now I can communicate better. Maybe, you know what? We are on the D word. A lot of the D word that we're doing on this show is about divorce, death, and deceit. Okay. Now, say for example, somebody who has gone through divorce because there was nothing really that they can do. They obviously were just not seeing eye to eye. How are you able to help people who are ready to start over in life, to find a new beginning, to find love again? How does living by human design help somebody master themselves and also future relationships? How can they make it work?
Well, thanks for asking that question, Ferlie, because that's the basis of human design, is really seeing your chart, understanding yourself, and then loving yourself, right? And wouldn't that be great if all of us went into relationships like that? The course I took in the 90s was exactly that. It was first love yourself, and then attract, basically, because of all the centers I just showed you, all the chart I just showed you, we actually have a part of us that's our soul, right? That's kind of in the middle, and then a will center. And those are both about the heart. And the heart is really what attracts. And the energy of those centers attracts. And once you love yourself, then basically you're just this big magnet for all the great people that you're supposed to attract. Now, you get to decide which one you want, right? But it's really about the attraction.
Would you advise somebody who is, say, for example, on a dating site, they're single, would you advise them as like to somehow get a quick reading, or like a short reading from you, to be able to know if they are compatible? Because I say living by human design not only for personal awareness, but also for relationships. Also, I even see it actually for human resources. I truly believe that this personality, how did you say that, personality assessment is going to help tremendously. When a manager wants to be able to communicate better or delegate tasks with the team. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. No, I mean, we use it for all different kinds of reasons. I mean, I was just about to show, I have a chart for George Clooney and Amal, his wife, and I can show you how I take one, your chart and another chart, and I put them together. So no matter who the two people are, so whether they're romantic partners or even business partners, I can put them together.
I'm sure everybody is curious now. So what, George Clooney, okay, now we're talking celebrity talk here. Like George Clooney and Amal, what was George?
So George is a projector, like you.
Amal?
and Amal is a manifesting generator who
Okay.
has a lot of energy. So I'll
Okay.
show you
So how does that work?
their two charts.
Interesting, right? Look at this.
Yeah.
Um, you
So
know, it's a whole different, like, I could not even say like it was a science. I was trying to find the word for it, but obviously it is more than that. It's almost like a fusion of
oh
science,
yeah,
math.
it's definitely pulling all the pieces together, Ferlie. So you
Yeah.
can't really point to anything on the chart that says, oh, this is the I Ching or this is the Kabbalah. Well, I can, but it's it's not important to the person I'm talking to.
Okay.
But what I do is I take one chart. So you take the one person's chart and the other person's chart, and basically I put them together. Now this chart coming together, I wouldn't really suspect would be a great relationship because they have so many white places still open. But if it seems, after a number of years that there's still a good relationship, and I'll tell you why. The top
What does
four
it mean
numbers.
when it's open?
Sorry, sorry.
Are the
So
white ones open? Is that
yeah.
what it means?
So I think I started mentioning this before, but the centers that are colored in on the chart are the ones where we give out energy, and the
Okay.
white ones are where we take in energy, and then we amplify other people's energy. So some people who has that little red triangle filled in, for example, that's the will center. They have the will energy, and in this case, George has it, and so he uh, has a lot of willpower, right? He has willpower and he's also emotional. And so he has that kind of energy. She has the other types of energy. And so we put them together and that's what they have. And they actually only have one electromagnetic together, which is where basically two of these little lines come together. And I actually call them electromagnetic hookups. But this is where we hook up and this is where we have the juice in a relationship. So they only have one of those, but they have the same, what we call incarnation cross, which is basically the story of your life. So when I talk to people, I'm able to tell them the story of their life, the story of their partner's life, and then we can see if those match and they come together in some way. George and Amal happen to have exactly the same four numbers at the top of their chart. And so they share a lot of values. And so people can come together and have very few electromagnetics, or they can have a lot of electromagnetics. The more they have, the juicier the relationship, to be
Oh,
honest.
wow.
And some people have, I've seen as many as 9 hookups in a chart, Ferlie, which is always nice to see. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's certainly nice to see. And in human design, we like to say that any two people can come together as long as you understand each other, right? Just for example, in this one, Amal has the gate 5, which says that she likes rhythms and patterns, and she likes her life to be in a very specific order, right? Like she probably likes to get up at the same time and go to bed at the same time, and she's a very practical lawyer, right? Whereas George, not so much. He's got the other half of the gate of the channel, which is called the gate of extremes, and so he's probably up at all hours and getting up at different times and going to bed at different times, and could eat dinner at any time he feels like it. It's that kind of an energy. And you can imagine being on a project like a movie project that serves him well, right? He never knows
That's
where
so
he's
funny
going to
because
be.
I'm smiling because I said like everything that you were saying about George also being a projector like me. I said, oh my gosh, we're so much alike. And for those of you who are listening there, as I've said, this is a whole different science of compatibility. And what I love about what you shared, Karen, is that it's not, yes, we're all going to be wired differently because we're unique individual people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea is that the more we understand how the other person is wired, the
Mm-hmm.
better it is for us to make compromises or to understand why they do certain things, why they behave a certain way, and perhaps we can begin to speak the language that they would understand. And that is what I
Or
see.
not.
Or not. Exactly, like you could be talking till you're blue in the face, but like they don't just get it. But you know what, I
They
guess
don't get it, and sometimes it's just best to be quiet.
see that's another strategy that most people do not know. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the silence is actually your best way to handle situations. And so for example, if when you see well, because this is again the D divorce for divorce, because we're going to be broadcasting this also on Divorce Dynasty, and a lot of the people that were helping there, that my co-host Carolina Deinhard, Dernhard, did I just say it wrong? Sorry. Is that she's so powerful when it comes to helping people, not only on the legal stuff, but also in being able to support their needs going forward in life. And that's the reason why we partnered, so that I could also help them with my life coaching, my image consulting, because you know how, like, even when I write people's online dating profile, for example, like, I would actually ask them to, you might want to get a reading first, so that you'll be able to articulate exactly who you are in your most authentic self, so that you don't misrepresent yourself in a way that then somebody would say, oh, that's not what I thought. It's almost like bait and switch or something like
right.
that. So, tell me something. If, say, for example, this piques somebody's interest, first of all, for personal, reading, there's also couples reading. There's also family reading, so that when all of the family members have different personalities, they all clash, they butt heads, there's always a lot of screaming. This could help a lot of families understand one another better. I promise you that. Yeah,
and actually, it was designed for the children. Human design, because many of your listeners probably haven't heard of it. It's only been around for 30 years, and so it's still relatively new. But it was created for the children, and it was created for the children, our children, basically, so that we could help to raise them, knowing their decision-making strategy, right? And helping them.
Does it change when you're young and then you get older, or is
No.
it our behavior towards knowing that changes?
Well, I mean, there's nature and nurture, right? The chart always stays the same. So whatever the child is born with, I mean, I can't tell you how many charts I run for newborns, because the parents want to know exactly what their child is as it's born,
Wow.
and what their decision-making strategy is. And I can't tell you, Ferlie, when you know the type of child it is, and the things in the chart, you can see how that plays out. I have a brand new great niece who is a manifester, and that little baby runs the house. I'm sure a lot of babies do, but this one just has everybody wrapped around her little finger, and she is doing and pushing all the buttons and making things work just for her. And so, it's really interesting to see how manifestors really show their power very early on. And it's just,
wow.
It's just good to know for the parents.
This is
and
very powerful.
Just for example, she also needs to be on a schedule. So I told her mother that. And she has that gate 5. She really needs to be on a schedule. And of course, a lot of children do, but she more than others. It will really help her to stay healthy to be on that schedule.
So maybe they don't have to see a shrink. I'm just saying,
well, we're all different, Ferlie, right? We're all different. And so parents can have children that are so different than them, and they wonder why. One will come out exactly the same, right? The little mini me. And then the next one will be, where did this one come from? And so this is why human design can help. It can help you to explain why one is definitely the mini me, and then the other one is quite different. And so,
oh my gosh, Karen, I'm thinking about living by human design in so many different spectrums now. I thought all the while it was only relationships, with myself, but now I also see that this could be a great parenting tool, so that really for new mommies, like you have no idea how to raise your children, your children are like toddlers, and you could never understand how you can discipline them in the way that would best work. This is an incredibly powerful tool. Oh my goodness.
There are some children who it just doesn't pay to yell at them. It just never will. And you can see that in the chart.
You know what? Has this ever, now look at me like you got my mind working. Has this ever been used even for like criminal minds? Or I'm just like, it's a little too extreme, but I'm saying like, for people.
How do we get from children to criminals?
No. I'm just saying, like, of course, like, I'm just also wondering why people when they commit certain things, you don't understand why. I'm just saying there's a lot of I
There
see
is.
that there's also a lot of psychology in this.
There
So,
is, Ferlie. That's why I love it, because my degree was in psychology, and I just love this information. And just to your point, real quick, half the world is emotional, and half the world is not. To me, and to the creator of human design, the biggest thing that we could let people know about is whether they're emotional or not.
wow.
The
And what
people who are emotional have a wave, right? And I think you do, and the others don't. They're kind of even keeled, right? And
yeah.
so, could you imagine between two partners if they just knew that?
Yep. You say, look, that from cradle to grave, basically, it's going to really help us. For myself, one thing that's really very important that I could never forget about, that you shared with me when you gave me my chart, you asked me if I get very exhausted whenever I come from a big event.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually crash after a big event. I need a day or two to really rejuvenate myself, to just recoup.
Right.
And you said to me before, I mean, as I've said, you do not know what I do. And then you said to me that based on my chart, I'm wise, but I do not have the sustaining energy. So I need to be supported by generators around me
Exactly.
to help me implement my ideas.
Yeah.
So
So you're
that
great with the ideas, Ferlie, but it's the rest of us who can do the doing, right? Who can get things done.
exactly, like generators like you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just saying, what a big awakening it is. And also another thing that you have shared with me when you were talking about energy,
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact, something that you read from my chart, that I absorb a lot of energy, and I also need to be replenished, that I need to be protective of it.
Yes.
So I hear your voice in my life all the time. You have no idea, for the last 10 years, how much impact your reading has made to my life and to
Oh,
Christine and to my daughter, because as I've
thank you
said,
for saying that.
that is like the best investment you could ever have for your sanity. Sanity and
I
serenity,
agree.
right?
Kept
Because
me sane.
you know what? When you understand yourself and you understand the people around you and the way the relationship works through living by human design, your life, I promise you, will change. So I invite every single one of you listening there, please, if for any reason if you're a brand new mom, if you're a mother of several children, or like a child that you could not seem to connect with, if you are in a relationship or a marriage that doesn't seem to work, or if you're ready to find love again after divorce, there is no way that you would not gain empowerment and wisdom from living by human design reading from Karen. I promise you, it has changed me in the most magnificent way. Karen, how will they be able to access you?
Oh, thanks, Ferlie. So the best way to get started is to go to my website, which is livingbyhumandesign.com, and get a free chart and get the information on. And as I said, all I need is your birth information, location, birth time, and birth date, and your name and email, of course, so that I can send the chart to you. I'll also send you some extra information about the energy type, and of course, access to my videos, which are all free. And then if and when the time is right, then you can get a session with me where I'll tell you all that you want to know about your chart. I like to tell people I do 2-hour sessions only because it's so much information, and it's so people have a lot of questions, of course. But if we really were sitting on the beach, I could talk to you about your chart for 10 days. I mean, for 10 hours at least. There's a lot of information in there.
And also another
But
thing
it
is
confirms
that,
a lot of what you probably know and answers all your questions.
yeah,
That's
you, you have done for me a reading, almost 10 years ago. However, even if the reading does not change, where I am in my life changes. So the way you read or you understand your reading back then will completely change, because you will be a
you
changed
changed.
person. You will be a changed person over the years.
Right.
And so this would be like a blueprint, right? Like,
It
is that
is.
fair to say?
It is, or instruction manual,
Like
we call
an
it too.
instruction manual of who you are. I come with the Ferlie Almonte instruction manual from Karen. So,
You
so
do.
thank you so very much, Karen. Can you give
You're
us
welcome.
3 tips, on how to live a more empowered and, successful and happy life before you go?
Well, I mean, the first thing is to find out who you are, right? And to learn more about who you are. And so I'm, uh, obviously in favor of human design because that's how I found out about who I was. Um, I always find that, well, I was just listening to Deepak Chopra this morning, and he said a quote, which of course was so appropriate for this. And it's called, he said, all he said was, life is love and love is life. And really, if we take that in and, allow things to come to be attracted to us because of the love we have for ourselves, that really your life will change in a very positive way. It has for me.
So, for you listeners out there, take control of your life. Living by human design is going to change your life. On behalf of my co-host, Carolina Deinhardt, do I say it right again? Dernhardt. Carolina Dernhardt. She's a family law and divorce attorney. Extraordinary. She also specializes in family law. I just want you to know that she's going to be there listening to you, giving even free virtual advice if you're going through any type of problems right now with your family, through COVID and through infidelities. And so hopefully, you will begin to have a resilient, beautiful, new beginning after you get a reading, after you get advice from a legal expert, and also from me, who can help you move forward in life with more resilience and confidence. Until next time, this is Ferlie Almonte. Take care of yourself and stay well. You can stop the reading.
Okay, I stopped it.
Woo!
Stop the recording.